Welcome to the study of Sociology of Work. Sociology of Work is a subdiscipline of sociology. Sociology is the science of social relations, social institutions, and social processes. Sociology of Work has been viewed as such an important subdiscipline that the International Sociological Association has devoted a special research committee, RC30, for reporting researches on the sociology of work. In substance, sociology of work does not differ very much from the Anglo-American conception of industrial sociology. What is industrial sociology to the British and Americans is Sociologie du travail for the French. The French wanted to preserve the tradition of critique of industrial sociology, the the study of industrial life and the accompanying problems of industrial life like alienation and other problems which Marx had criticized. Sociology of work has a broad scope. It deals with work in all its varied forms. Work does not merely include manual work. Intellectual work is also work, and it is no less strenuous than a factory job. For example, I am teaching you. Now, teaching requires a lot of preparation and a lot of emotional and intellectual energy. So the now let's look at how sociology of work has emerged. Though sociology of work is a new discipline, yet its roots go far back to the 18th century. Adam Smith, in his famous book Wealth of Nations, which was published in 1876, made a detailed study of division of labor. His famous example of the pin factory is worth recollecting. Smith showed that if a worker produces a pin all by himself, then he will be able to produce only 24 pins a day. But if the work is divided into 18 different jobs and each worker is given one part of the job, like one worker cuts the wire, another sharpens one portion of the wire, another worker puts on the cap of the pin, another worker is assigned to pack the pins like this. Then the productivity of a worker increases 240 fold. While Smith saw the benefits of division of labor, Marx regarded it as a curse for the worker. Marx showed that for the worker, division of labor produces alienation. It becomes a drudgery. Work is no longer a pleasant activity. Now let's fast forward to the 20th century. In 1911, Frederick Winslow Taylor published a very significant book, Scientific Management. In this book, he discussed the results of his experiments on productivity. Taylor was an employee of Bethlehem Iron Works. This factory used to produce pig iron. Pig iron means the crude iron that comes out of the blast furnace. Now, a group of workers were assigned the task of loading wagons with this pig iron. Taylor found that these workers were slow and phlegmatic. The workers were slow and phlegmatic. At most, they can produce 12 to 12 and a half tons of each worker can produce 12 to 12 and a half tons of pig iron they can load per day. Taylor proposed to increase productivity. So how did he do it? Well, initially, the owners of the factory did not believe in him, but later they granted him the permission. And he worked with a man, a Dutchman called Schmidt. So he asked Schmidt, "Are you a high class man?" Schmidt said, "I don't know what you mean." He said, "Look, if you are a high class man, you will follow what I say. You earn $1.15 a day. I will increase your wage to $1.80 a day. In return, you must follow strictly the instructions of a supervisor, which I will assign to you. When he says take rest, take rest. When he says walk 10 paces, you will walk 10 paces. So, in this way, Taylor trained Schmidt and he found that Schmidt's productivity vastly increased. Instead of 12 to 12 and a half tons per day, Schmidt loaded wagons, loaded wagons at the rate of 48 tons per day. 48 tons per week. Now, this vast increase in productivity resulted in the success of Taylor's experiment. Taylor also experimented with various sorts of shuffles to get the one best method of doing it. We wanted to find out the one best method of doing it. That is to do the work. Now, Taylor's theory have been widely criticized. Among his critics were obviously the trade unions, who regarded Taylor as an enemy of the working class. They thought that Taylor's scientific management will be another new tool for the management to exploit the workers. A socialist, Upton Sinclair, also wondered why Taylor gave so little an increase in wages and got so much in return. In 1927, a series of experiments began at the Hawthorne Works of the Western Electric Company. These were known as the Hawthorne Experiments. Their initial concern of the experimenters was to do research on the relationship between productivity and various forms of incentives. They found they wanted to see how far productivity will increase. They were led by a professor of management from Harvard Business School, Elton Mayo, and they conducted many experiments. They found that in the relay assembly test room experiment that group incentives lead to group formation, whereas in the micro splitting test room they gave individual incentives. There they found that workers became individualistic, just like Schmidt in Taylor's experiments. But the real breakthrough came in the bank wiring observation group study. The workers were tasked to wire electric banks, switchboards with they called banks. Each switchboard or bank had 3,000 wire connections. So a worker was expected to make at least two banks, that is 6,000 connections per day. The researchers soon found that the workers had set an informal quota that they will not produce more than two banks per day. Neither will they produce less. So, unlike the bank firing observation, the relay assembly test room where the productivity had soared, here the productivity did not soar on account of incentives. The productivity more or less remained the same. Interviews revealed that the workers could easily produce more than what they were producing. So, the researchers found that productivity was limited not by the physical capacity of the workers, but by their social capacity. And this research was reported by Roethlisberger and Dixon in their book Management and the Worker. Before we conclude, let's summarize what we have learned. Here we have discussed the nature and scope of sociology of work. We have found that sociology of work is a subdiscipline of sociology. Sociology of work is taught in many universities throughout the world. For example, it is taught at the University of Burdwan in India, in the University of Kent, UK, and in many other universities. Many sociologists like Alan Turing, Michael Crozier, and others have contributed to this subdiscipline. The International Sociological Association has devoted a research committee on the sociology of work. The, social, the scope of sociology of work is vast. It embraces the entire gamut of work, the various, it embraces the relations people have of between the relationships people develop while they are at work. And that includes the study of formal organizations, informal groups, trade unions, industrial relations, occupational groupings, and the study of sociology of work also includes the study of non-work activities like leisure. So we conclude this study, this lecture here. Thank you.